Well, that's on her mark.
Yes.
Ready? I'm Najee Ali, civil rights activist, director of Project Climate Hope, with my colleague Lawanda Hawkins, CEO, founder of Justice for Murdered Children, San Pedro activists and community residents. We are outraged and shocked at the recent hire of ex-Beverly Hills Police Chief Sandra Spagnoli. And the reason why this hire is something that we are calling upon CEO Darlene Kim of the Toberman Neighborhood Center to rescind and have immediate termination is based on the number of lawsuits that the ex-police chief had in Beverly Hills. She had at least a dozen lawsuits filed against her successfully. Those that were paid out are settled out of court to the tune of nearly $8 million. This is a letter that was sent this morning to Mayor Eric Garcetti, and we're asking him to rescind the funding for the Toberman Neighborhood Center, which has a GRYD program that taxpayers pay for. We're also asking that funding not be renewed for the following calendar year unless this hire is terminated. And I think that's very important because she's a walking lawsuit. She's someone who has a documented history of being racist, making anti-Semitic comments, making racist comments, and derogatory comments towards Latinos, as well as sexually harassing her employees and her subordinates up under her leadership as chief of police in Beverly Hills. And that's why we're speaking out today, and the First Lead is calling for her immediate termination. I'm sure there'll be others joining our call as well as time goes on. So it's very important that we understand, and it's even their own employees said it's a bad hire, it's a bad look. And these are people who actually work here who stated that publicly, in front of me. So with that, my colleague Lawanda Hawkins will give her statements.
Yes, good morning. I'm a little embarrassed that this is my third time here regarding allegations of racism. This is not my first, this is my third. So I'm a little offended that we're back again regarding this. And I know the city of LA has just came up with a program called LA Hate Campaign that's ran by an awesome young lady. And so with this going on at the same time, this high, I'm just a little concerned, even though these are just allegations. It's a little concerning, especially when we talk about social justice. And I just want to know if this hire was under the criminal justice reform or a re-entry, because it's somewhat culturally insensitive to the community that it serves. And I'm just a little concerned if this is the community that we're serving, if this is how we handle it. Racism, we already have problems with that here in the South Bay. We don't need allegations of that to bring someone in to, how do you say it, you already got a fire and someone comes in and throw gasoline. We don't need that type of behavior. Well, especially after what we've seen in 2021 with law enforcement in the community, we should be trying to come together. And we don't need anyone trying to bring in stuff to try to separate us. We've been with law enforcement for years, trying to, keep it united. And when you get allegations like this come along, it creates some type of a division. The people here, the guys who work here, they're awesome. The GRYD workers here, they're awesome. You couldn't ask for any better GRYD workers. But I'm concerned for their safety too.
So with that, I'll make a closing statement that at the end of the day, this new hire has a documented history of being a racist, someone who's made anti-Semitic remarks, someone who's made homophobic comments. And these just aren't allegations. These were a dozen lawsuits filed against her successfully, settled out of court, or either paid off under her tenure as the chief of Beverly Hills. And that's why it's important to understand We don't need that type of leadership in San Pedro. And I'll take it a step further. This is the epitome with this hire of white supremacy. Because certainly her record and her resume is something that is a resume filled with failure. And she does not deserve to be in this position and be hired in our community. And I'll take it one more step further. I'm questioning the board's decision to hire her, because certainly they lack diversity as well. And this decision was made, primarily by an all-white board of directors and a CEO. So we're also calling upon this board to have more diversity in its leadership. Because certainly there'd been a person of color, African American on this board, this decision to hire her, I believe, never would have happened. And certainly there would have been more discussion. So with that, my closing, this is just the initial press conference. When the plan is organizing a town hall meeting to let residents weigh in and give their opinions on this hire. But certainly we're calling upon the immediate termination of her tenure as the Director of Social Justice. And that's something that the mayor's office can do. They can remove their funding from Toberman Neighborhood Center if this hire is not rescinded. And that's something that we hope would not happen, but certainly we're not backing away. We're not backing away. We're not backing down. So huh? Yeah, that was it in the press conference. And you have the official letter?
I do.
Yeah.
It's still the same issue. It hasn't been resolved. She wait for the public to say that. It's the same issue. Oh, I forgot. Remember I told you I came down here 3 times? One time was with her, with this racist issue. I forgot to, I didn't want to identify people to say anything.
I
didn't want to identify let me say this, right?
I'm in the middle of something right now.
Wait till you get something.
I didn't want to say.
Yeah, it's at the office. Yes.
We have time on me. That's one of the news people call. This is
Right.
press conference.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a community.
Long time no see. How you doing?
I'm all right.
I know I got my mask off, but still.
I know.
My concern is this. I am a Harbor City resident. They have a contract where they're supposed to fit a need as far as gang intervention in the harbor area. We have come down here for a number of years, right, asking why they do not have African American representation to work with the youth in our community. We still don't. Now we have an issue where you're hiring somebody with all of the racial tension we've been having over these years to work with our youth. Why is this important to me, you ask? Because I have 2 younger brothers who have been murdered in Harbor City. So if you tell me and my mother that there's not a need for black representation to work with the youth, I'm gonna tell you bullshit, right? We've, again, in the last 10 years, buried 2 of our siblings. We understand that we have a close relationship with the Latino community, but we need somebody to work with our youth specifically. Toberman continues to ignore that need, but they continue to be paid for it, right? Again, now we have someone who is police-centered over a program that's supposed to work with at-risk youth. We work with at-risk youth. Myself and a few of the brothers standing out here, we work with them. The GRYD program in the mayor's office understands that there has to be a certain type of relationship that helps to combat and bring down violence and the crime rate, right? And it's not from the police, it's the engagement of gang interventionists. You need somebody who is like-minded when it comes to how you run these programs, how resources are divided. Me as somebody, again, who has buried 2 of their younger brothers, would love to see Toberman stand up and provide the representation that Harbor City needs. Appreciate y'all sharing. But yeah, her resignation would be great. I know there are a number of people of different backgrounds who probably would be well more suited to run a social justice program than someone with former police affiliation, and they didn't have a good record. Why would you bring her down here when there's enough racial tension between the communities? We don't need that. We're trying to build and come together, right? We don't need someone to come down and put more of a divide. We feel like this is taking us backwards. Harbor City, Wilmington, and San Pedro, we're not trying to go backwards. We're trying to save our youth out here. We just want somebody who comes with that same mindset to support the guys and girls who work with the youth. That's all we're asking for. I don't think it's that hard. Thank you.
And in my closing comment,
That was my second meeting. When I told you I had 3 meetings, second meeting
Yeah.
was with them. I brought
Yeah.
them in, and they came in and say there was a racial problem.
right.
All right.
And,
I want to talk to you guys afterwards because I have another problem.
Okay, well, closing comment was very important that everyone in the community knows we are trying to solve racial problems. We don't need someone who has a history of documented racism coming in and being in a role of leadership, working in a community that's primarily brown and black. So this is the epitome of white supremacy, and also I would say white privilege. And last remark is the Toberman employees themselves came out in front of me this morning and said publicly, it's a bad look, it's a bad hire. Those are their words, not mine. We'll take questions.
All righty. What did you think? Well, first off, it wasn't the board that actually hired her. It was actually done on the operations side, meaning under the executive director's position. What will happen if they don't? What do you think will happen if they do take away the funding from the GRYD program at Toberman?
Well, that's something that we're hopeful and praying does not happen. But obviously, city leaders who I've talked to off the record are very disturbed, very troubled by this hire. Because they saw her history in Beverly Hills with $8 million in lawsuits that were filed against her. This is a small nonprofit, and the city doesn't want that type of hire to potentially cost the city millions of dollars.
Okay.
And also, I read something that stated from the CEO that she believes in second chances. Okay, I believe in second chances, but this hire has had 12 second chances based on the 12 lawsuits that were filed against her in Beverly Hills. So she's had 12 chances. That's official.
That's true. Except those lawsuits came all at once for the most part.
And then keep in mind, these lawsuits were filed against her weren't filed by just regular citizens.
No.
They were filed by her own police officers and employees that worked under her in Beverly Hills. So these are cops suing their police chief. So you're telling me 12 cops they're all lying? They're all saying that she was racist, made homophobic comments, anti-Semitic comments. All these police officers are lying against her. I don't believe it.
Do you agree with Ms. Keenan's assertion that a police captain who has a situation like she's been through should be off the same, it's in the same kind of position as gang interventionists who may have a background with gang violence or in gangs, period,
No, not
who
at
are
all.
working in the community?
Not at all.
Has she ever gangbanged?
She should be held to a much higher standard because at the end of the day, ex-gang members are always going to be perceived as ex-gang members. They're always going to have that scarlet letter upon them, whether they want to acknowledge it or not. And that's how they're viewed by society. They're always going to have that mark against them. So for her to try to portray her as being similar to ex-gang members is really a slap in the face.
Just so everybody understands, you have a relationship with GRYD. Could you explain that for us?
Who, me?
Yes.
I've worked and supported all the peace ambassadors to GRYD since GRYD was invented. I was at the very beginning, so I support the great work that they do throughout the city. Some programs are better than others, but I'm not here to throw stones at any GRYD workers because at the end of the day, they put their lives on the line for the community. So I want to make that clear. I'm not here throwing stones at any GRYD workers. I'm simply saying this hire, it's a bad hire. And you know, she's a cop. Working with the community, it makes it actually harder on GRYD workers to have a license to operate in the community. Those are facts. Sure.
Has the board commented on this hire?
I have not spoke to the board. I actually went to the website to see who actually was on the board and saw nothing but a sea of white faces. And that's another call that we're making, is to have more African-American GRYD workers here, as well as more diversity on the board. Because certainly I believe had there been black people on the board, this hire never would have been successful.
Or even some Latino people.
Even Latinos. Because we're talking about a police chief who's anti-Latino as well. She's anti-Latino, anti-black, anti-Jewish, and anti-LGBTQ. She checks all the boxes of the races. All the boxes. So that's any more questions?
I don't have.
Okay, well, I'm pretty sure there'll be a follow-up. As I said, don't take the fact that there's only a certain amount of people at the press conference. As I said, tell people all the time, this ain't a protest or a rally, just a press conference. We have the town hall meeting. We expect that to be packed.
When is that town hall going to be?
We got to get it's to be announced. To be announced.
You posted on the San Diego.
No, we'll post it everywhere once it's decided, the location. And we got to keep in mind this is COVID, so we got to also be safe.
Right.
So whether it's in person or Zoom, this is just the first in a series of actions that we'll take to protest the hire. But the most important action was this morning when this letter was emailed to Mayor Garcetti.
Aside from Tian's comments in the Random Lake News article, has there been any official statement or anything like that coming from the organization?
No. Hopefully the media can ask them why they chose to hire her in more detail. But certainly, as I said, she's been proven to be anti-black, anti-Latino, anti-Jewish, anti-LGBTQ, based on a dozen lawsuits filed against her when she was the police chief in Beverly Hills. All those lawsuits were successful. They were either settled or paid out of court to the tune of nearly $8 million. And trust me, they can't afford a lawsuit. Thank you.
She said
And again, we need to make sure that people understand the gang intervention workers here at the Toberman are the best. And it's not an issue with them. They need more help. And we don't want their lives to be put in danger with any type of affiliation going on with law enforcement, because it can be confusing on the streets.
Right. And it can affect their license to operate. They're working for a cop.
I don't think we should be saying that.
But it's the truth.
I don't think we should be saying that. Please don't put that out there. Don't put that out there.